Okay. Okay. So yeah, we're trying something a little different here. I feel like the guinea pig of this, though. We haven't really done an open office before for science. So actually, this is kind of the first time. Yeah, we wanted to do something different. Um, Welcome to you guys that have joined. And this is an open office, so it's not really like a training where you have to sit the whole time. If you get what you need, you're free to go. And we'll have people probably pop in. Some of you can pop in like at the last 5 minutes, and really just to answer your questions about the science lab. I am going to record this for anybody who might need this information later. I am going to start off with just a brief little presentation, and then once we're done with that, I'm really just going to open the floor for questions. You can go off mic for that, or you can put it in the chat so I can answer any questions. Um, just because we have different levels, we have maybe you get lab manager's first time, your first time doing lab manager, so you might have a lot of questions where I might have a lab manager that's been doing it for 10 years. They might not have a lot of questions. Maybe they just need one thing to clarify. So we really wanted to cater that to your needs there. But I am going to start off with just a quick little presentation because I'm excited. There's one thing I'm really excited about, um, and that is this is the 10th year of Science Lab. So it's really cool to see something that has sustained for a decade. Um, so how cool is that? So back in 2012, um, Dr. Grego was his big initiative was, hey, let's have a science lab in every elementary school, kind of like a music or art room where students can go and do some different science and get their hands on some materials and do really in-depth hands-on type items. So yeah, we started then. We organized it. We wrote up everything on our team. We decided we were going to do it ourselves rather than have a company do it, so we could really cater it. So that was very exciting. And then we started off with like 12 schools, 12 to 24 schools as a pilot, and then we just started bringing on throughout the year, a couple of years, other schools. So we finally got up to 78, and we started with just grades 3 through 5. And then once we got all 78, then we added first and second grade to the labs as well. So it's just really cool. I was like, wow, 10 years. It's a cool thing to see, and really to see how science labs have changed over the years, the different activities. So there's just some of the pictures I was going through, and one of them really hit me. I don't know if Miss Noun sees a particular picture that would be very interesting to me as a dad. Um, so I was going through my pictures there. The little boy in the red uh, sweater there, looking at his Kindle. That's my son Ryan. So he was at San Jose Elementary there, and he's a senior now at East Lake High. So it's like, wow. So he got to go through and do some science labs. So you can see it, all the different things that the students have been doing over the years. Even as I was putting this together, I was trying to think about what are the similarities in these pictures, you know. And you can put stuff in the chat if you want to, but some of the similarities, the students are all doing hands-on, you know. Oh, go ahead. There was typing in there. Yes, hands-on. I'll let you guys put some things in there. Any other similarities that you might see? You can put it in the chat. Engaged. Yes. Very good. Collaboration. Using tools. I love it. Hey, we're hitting some of those things we talked about today, Miss Noun. How about that? In the science lab. Exploration. Yep. Absolutely. Teamwork and responsibility. Recording, technology. All right. Yeah. Teamwork and responsibility. I love, oh, I see some core values in your responses. That's pretty amazing. Yeah, working together, solving problems. Even the little guys are building a marble run. So they had to like figure out what pieces they needed and work together. And sometimes that's not easy, especially for children to share ideas. Sometimes they're not very good at sharing. So it the science labs also kind of build those social skills as well as our science skills. So it was really fun going back through a lot of pictures and seeing the different things. And someone mentioned technology as well, with the students using the Kindles and the probeware. So I'm going to move to my next slide here. So the science labs, if you've been with the science labs for years, they really did start off very heavily in nature of science. So the first couple of years, really going through scientific method, using tools, observations, all that good stuff, recording. And then they kind of shifted more content heavy. So they went more of a content heavy focus for a number of reasons. Some of them were just we wanted to do some review. So they became more of a review avenue. Um, and also, if there were standards that were usually our lowest performing on SSA, so those that went down that avenue as well. Um, but now in our core, we're starting to really do a lot of spiral review and doing some good things there. And we notice our nature of science is still lagging behind a little bit. And we didn't even have our science showcase for a number of years. We're bringing that back. We brought it back last year, but hopefully we're gonna expand on that a little bit more this year. So we thought, let's go back to science labs and really use those investigations and embed the nature of science, kind of make that more in the forefront and have the content kind of in the background. So with nature of science, so you'll see several of the investigations going through the full scientific method. I'm working with Alicia, and we're actually looking at physical science labs, both of them, and their full scientific method. So variables, questions, data collection, all that good stuff. Um, and using science tools, observations, other types of investigations. So not every lab lends itself to a full-blown scientific method investigation. So we know there's other types of like using models or research or field studies or things like that, or where they have maybe building something. So we'll identify those standards along the way. And the biggest thing is using scientific evidence, so forming conclusions at the tail end of the lab, using what they found out, using their evidence and charts or observations to come up with evidence. So you're going to see that. You're going to see a lot more of that in the forefront and less the content. So if you've done science labs for many years, that might be a little bit of a shift in your thinking where you really want to use the processes of science and using that language um, of nature of science. Even into the questions, so our pre and post tests will reflect more nature of science. So if you've done the pre-post tests or pre-test actually, you haven't done post tests yet, um, you might see a little bit more nature of science questions in there. We've also put in some entrance exit tickets in the labs here and there, so students can practice. Even where applicable, we have nature of science style SSA questions. So um, even at fourth grade, having students see, how are those SSA style questions worded? They're a little bit more complex, and you'll see even most nature of science questions are a lot more complex than your regular content questions. They use a lot more logic thinking. You have to really think with a lot of these questions. And then our content, so Earth, physical, and life standards are prevalent, but they're not the driving force with Science Lab. They're kind of going to hover in the background. Obviously, there's going to be some content, but there might be a day where they're going to do a content building before getting to the scientific method, just so that they have that science foundation of whatever that concept. So if it's on how heat transfers, so radiation, conduction, convection, they might need a little content building first and then going into the investigation. So we kind of opened it up that way, which is very good. And then the lab flow. Day one is usually building background, maybe some sort of introductory task. And then days 2 through 3, actually 2 through 4, um, should be the full scientific exploration. So that's 2 through 4. And then day 5, revisiting, reviewing, thinking, and taking the lab post test. So that just gives you a little bit of idea of what's happening with our shift in science labs. And we're going to take a look at the lab manager agreement real quick. And Wendy, if you have any comments, feel free to jump in there. Absolutely. So the obviously the biggest role, and this is what the stipend is for, is really maintaining the science lab materials for if you're, let's say you're a fourth grade lab manager. So making sure that those materials are set for your teachers, um, and you have everything that the students need for that particular week. So I'm just thinking the Enviroscape lab is a big one. So you have the big city that will be polluted with different things, and you need different liquids because you're going to do some pH testing. So that lab has a lot of little components to it, to set up, um, and to maintain throughout the week. So you might have to go in there and um, replenish some things, liquids or test tubes or whatever. So you definitely want to check daily, to make sure everything is ready to go for the next day. So there's some labs where you really have to go in every day and check it out and move things around. Should you be cleaning up? Really, the teacher and the students should help clean up the lab. It should not be left for the lab manager. There might be a little, obviously, putting away and cleaning up, but for daily use, the teachers and students should be cleaning up after themselves and putting things back in the appropriate place. But they do need to reset. Lab managers complete an inventory. Um, Not really so much in the beginning of the year because we just did the end year. So we got all the end of the year this past year, their inventories, and we did 2 weeks ago. We did a refresh. So we took all the inventories and kind of saw what the needs of the different schools were and tried to place those in the boxes and sent those out. So you might have gotten a couple boxes with some lab materials, and we even sent out some new posters and things like that. Um, if you're still the lab manager from last year, you should have a copy of your inventory. If you're a new lab manager, you might want to email me if you need a copy of last year's. I can get that to you if you don't have it, or if you need a blank one. You're not required to send me a beginning of the year inventory, especially since one was just done. But sometimes labs move, so you might not know where things are. Or if you're a new lab manager, you're like, I don't know what this is. And we'll take a look at that in just a brief second. But the end of year inventory is a major piece, because that also helps us if I go through and I say, oh my gosh, we need to buy more LED flashlights or whatever, so we can get those lists to our secretary Lisa, to order for the next year. So those are very important. Um, Sometimes I don't get lab inventories from school, so I don't know what you need. So if you say, "Oh, I'm good. We're good over here," okay, but I mean, still get it to me just in case. It's good to have on hand, especially if things change. If a lab manager needs to change or something like that, or the lab moves, um, it's good to have that information. There might be times where you might have to purchase consumable things for the lab. We try to get as much as possible. Um, but for example, the Enviroscape lab, with the Enviroscape, they're doing pH. So there's different liquids like a little bit of vinegar or vitamin water or something, because they're going to test different liquids. So you might have to purchase just a little bottle of that for the year. There might be times where you'd have to purchase maybe some celery for third grade or mealworms. That one's still in there. It's been a 10-year voyage. The kids love exploring with mealworms, so we're definitely doing that one still. Um, so that's a fun one. So there's times where you might have to purchase some things, and every school has it's $250, I believe. Our secretary sent out a cost strip to all the schools, so you're able to purchase that piece. Um, Posters, artifacts, displays. So we want the science lab to look sciencey. So it should shout science. That's a very important thing for many reasons. We want students to, when they go in there, like, "Oh wow, look at this is a really cool place." Um, Also, if we have walkthroughs or visitors, they might want to see the science lab, and if it's not set up or um, look in good shape, they might question that. So we definitely want the room. Yeah, and put every school. It's pretty cool when I go around to the different labs to see the different personalities. Every school makes their lab a little bit different. But make sure the artifacts we've sent displays and posters. We sent out some new posters. But if you need anything else, let us know. I know some labs are a little harder. Some of the rooms are smaller. Some of them are in portables. So even if you're at a portable, um, you still want to set up and make it look like it's a science lab. I know there are times where the portable isn't the best place, but we definitely need to make sure it's set up, even if there's times where a lab has to be done in a classroom for whatever reason. Just make sure those materials are set up because you do get the stipend for that. And changing out bulletin boards for each investigation, making sure their I can statements, vocabulary, and anything else for those grade levels. And there, we want primary in there. Now, is there a lab manager for primary? We do not have a lab manager for primary. Um, One of the reasons is they're only a 2-day model and they have less labs. So basically, second grade only goes to the lab 10 times. That's basically it. They have 5 labs or 2 days. First grade only goes 6 days. They have 3 labs, 2 days. Um, but 3 through 5, they have it's 25 days total, 5 labs, 5 days. So they have a lot more days. And the materials are a little bit more intense for the upper grades. There's a little bit more things you might have to purchase or set up. That's why we really need lab managers in the upper grades. So the first and second grade, their labs, the materials aren't as heavy. So we have just asked the teams, the first and second grade teams, to maybe just rotate. Hey, you set up this lab, I'll set up the next one, and just going that way. So we don't have a primary. Now you might have. I know some schools where um, a lab manager has just taken on that as an extra role, and that's totally cool. If you're just kind in your heart to set up first and second grade, that's totally cool. I do have many lab managers that just go ahead and do it anyway because you guys are awesome. So that would be fine. Um, but you don't get extra stipend for that. I'm sorry. Um, Lab managers check and monitor technology. We do have Kindles. They're still very usable. They do connect to the internet. They just can't we can't really update them anymore. Um, Whispercast has gone away, so I can't even push any documents and anything. So what's on them is on them. Unfortunately, I was able to get a lot of stuff pushed out to them before Whispercast went away, um, like Dash and Dot and things like that are on a lot of them. But if you had the first generation Kindles, you might not have any of those, but you can still use those for research. If a student needs to look up like minerals and things like that, or even doing GimKit or quizzes or Kahoots, those are also very good um, for the end of the week, doing little quizzes and stuff like that. We do have iPads. So we put iPads in the lab as well, and those are actually to be shared with math because they're doing robotics. So third grade has the dash and dot, so they might be doing some programming with the dash and dot, so they might need those Kindles. We have Cubelets and we have the Vexco robotics too, which might require those different apps. So we want to make sure those, and they're just a lot easier to maintain. Right now, I know that they're changing the way they're managed. So I'm trying to get more information on that. We did use Apple Watch, and now it's changing over. So trying to figure out a little bit more about that, so we can manage those further. So just make sure you know where your Cubelets are. You definitely know where your Vexco robotics are. Um, I did notice in some of the inventories I received, they were, I don't know where my Cubelets are, or I don't know where my Vexco. They should be in your school. They might be in a teacher's room. The Vexco could be in a fifth grade teacher's room, um, and as well as the Cubelets. The Cubelets are shared with fourth and second grade, because second grade does 2 days with the Cubelets. So it's possible they could be in somebody's room, depending on that. And we do have Pasco sensors. Those were digital sensors we sent out several years ago, and they still work beautifully. I actually had a teacher last year. She wanted to do her observation. She said, "Hey, I want to use the Pasco sensors for my teaching observation." I'm like, "Wow, you're pretty bold." So I helped her get them all set up, and she actually used them for the lesson, and it went fabulous. She did the pH with that. Everything worked great. So we definitely want to use technology in the science lab. And if you have any questions, what definitely give me a holler. Um, we got it. We can't pay you if you're not able to set up the labs, or for whatever reason we can't get you um, that stipend. So if there's any issues or something we need to support you with, let Wendy or I know what we can do. Sometimes there's different issues for whatever reason, but don't let things kind of spiral out of control. Make sure you communicate first with your admins, and then if there's anything we can do to support you to make the science lab successful, please let us know. I know that's um, one of my roles now is able to go out to science labs and do science lab visits, where I couldn't do that um, in 2020, last couple of years. So I'm able now this year to kind of get back out there and monitor the labs a little bit more and support folks. We do monitor the labs using the pre and post tests. So we really want to look at pre and post data, and we're looking at kind of that percent increase. Um, and that's helped us design the labs over the years. So one of the labs that was a big one in fourth grade was magnets. But over a couple of years, they were just the data was showing we don't really need a lab for that. So we removed that and we put in Cubelets. So sometimes that data helps us. Oh, what's this lab isn't really working. Let's kind of, what do we need to change, or what do we need to replace it with, or something. So, um, and I know the higher ups like to look at that data as well. So that is really the roles and responsibilities section. And I just got just a couple more things. And then just a couple pictures here. So if you're a new lab manager, you kind of get an idea of what that could look like. So you can see in the pictures there's a picture of the plant lab for third grade, which has changed a little bit. It's a little different now, but it's focusing on the leaves instead of all the parts. But you can see there's a bulletin board. They even have a little probe there. There's the trays. So every lab does have um, little trays to put the group materials on. And you can see on their bulletin board, they got vocabulary and I can statements and some artifacts too. So that's really cool. And I love the sticky bar graph they have there for the probe, which is fantastic. And there's another one up there in the corner, fifth grade, with the I can statements, rocks and minerals vocabulary, and they even have a little charging station there for the Kindles and iPads, which is cool. And then if you're fourth grade, you haven't seen it before, that's the Enviroscape little city. The students observe that and pollute it and see all the different effects of pollution on a model scale. So it's kind of fun. And then real quick, let me just talk about inventory, 'cause that's a big piece. Um, one thing I got a lot of great feedback was adding pictures this year. And who knew? Like, yeah, hey, pictures. So a lot of teachers were like, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much," or a DWC, "Thank you for the pictures on the inventory." Um, so it's very important that you go through there. We did send out like third grade needed some folks that said like little rocks and minerals. They do break down um, over time, especially over the year because they're kind of small. So we sent out some refresher, not refreshments, kits for that. But when you get to the end of the year, and a lot of people, here's an idea they shared with me that they do the inventory as they go. So once third grade Earth is done, go ahead and do the inventory. Pack it up, write down your inventory, and then when you do your physical science, when you're done with them, do the inventory. Pack them up, do the inventory. Guess what? Then by the time you get to the end of the year, your inventory's already done. Then you have it. You have a good idea of what you might need, and it's not crazy at the end of the year. So do it as you go. That's just a little hint from some of my lab managers I've had for many years. And definitely make sure you put in the replacements. So if your kits are torn up, just I need three new kits, or I need two new sedimentators because they broke. Um, and we do look at that as well. Now, if you're really missing some things, we will contact you. Like we saw in some inventories, like there was a complete blank for some different things. So we kind of question like how, like the new stream tables we sent out last year in a box. So we're like, we didn't get those. I'm like, that's impossible because we literally every school got a box of new set um, stream tables. They're mini ones. So we will reach out. We'll go back through those inventories and see if there's anything we need to contact a school about. Or please contact me if you can't find anything. Let me know and we can help you out there. And then just real quick, just a couple of pictures of the technology. Make sure you locate your cubelets for fourth grade, your Vexco down here at the bottom. Make sure you locate those Vexco kits. And again, they're shared with math. Math might have some activities they do there as well. And your Kindles, iPads, and Pasco sensor probes, which are still very valid and useful in the science lab, and also core. There's some kids using the weather sensor, which are fantastic to help students understand barometric pressure, wind speed, all that good stuff. And I'm gonna stop talking. That was my short little presentation. And just how can I support you guys? That's the biggest thing. So contact me whenever you need. And I can even probably schedule a time to come out when I have some gaps in my schedule for sure. So I'm going to let you guys ask questions. You can go on mic or you can put it in the chat. And I'm going to be here till 5 o'clock so people can pop in and out during the this office open office. So thank you.
Amy, there's just one thing I wanted to add on to what you said. I know
Sure.
you're saying it's when you went through the lab manager agreement,
Yeah.
about putting up the boards and setting out all the materials.
Yes.
It's really important that once you finish, your grade level finishes, let's say
Hmm.
through cycle through lab one. And
Yep.
as the lab manager, go ahead, even if you're not starting for a couple weeks or so, go ahead and clean that one up. Go ahead and set out the second lab.
Yes.
We don't want labs just to be a collection of just the leftovers of things. So go
Hmm.
ahead and pack it up and get a jump start on setting it up so
Yeah.
that it looks ready to go and it's well organized and very inviting place for students to come learn.
Right. Yeah, I know that was something from a couple of years ago. Like people walk through and like, why isn't the lab set up? Oh, we're finished. Well, have the next one ready to go. Yeah, that's a good point. Good.
Especially with our new teachers, providing them some support and guidance as to the expectations
Hmm.
and how the lab runs and works. Um, that often will, be on the lab manager to help support those teachers.
Yep. So I'm going to just stay here for any questions. I know people might pop in and out. Um, so if you don't have any questions, you're free to go, but I'm going to stay here till 5 o'clock, just in case we get more people that want to pop on and answer questions and stuff. Thank you, Susie. Did I answer all your questions?
Yes. Yes. Actually, you answered all of my questions earlier today. So thank you.
How? Wow. That's pretty impressive.
Yes.
Michelle wants one of the shirts. Are they the science showcase shirts? Is that what you're talking about? I think we have some of those left. I mean,
Here's a great question about pretest, Jamie.
okay. Do you still want us to have yes. It's just nice to get those out of the way. They are open on Performance Matters. They're only 5 questions um each. So I would go ahead definitely and get those out of the way. Plus it's a good it gives us a really nice good pre since you haven't taught those skills yet. So even and we're noticing because again they're very heavy on nature of science. So the pretest data coming in, they're pretty low, which we expected. So yeah, go ahead and do that. Michelle, I'm going to see if I can grab you one. What size, Michelle? And Jennifer, you're taking over the role. Yeah, send me an email and I will send you. If they did inventory last year, I can send you what they gave me. If not, I can send you a blank one. Okay. And that should get you off to a good start.
And Jamie, you may have said this, but Deborah, if you need someone to come out
Yeah.
just to help you get eyes on the materials, Jamie or myself or
Yep.
someone on the team can definitely help you with that. Just let us know.
I did that last week. I went out to school, brand new lab manager in charge of all the labs. And I was literally like, I said, set up 3 tables for me. And I was like, boom, boom. This is fourth grade. This is third grade. This is fourth, this is primary, So it was like, um, yeah, and we were able to get a lot of stuff out of there too. Sometimes the lab becomes what's the right word?
Collection, depository, or
It becomes the portal of all science. Might not be science lab, it might be other things that show up there. So yeah. So
so here's
yeah,
a
definitely.
question. Jennifer, do we still put the pre-test up on the wall and the test after? I'm not quite sure. Jennifer, could you maybe come on
Yeah. We used to like put on the wall like our pre-test scores, and then after we took the test, report the test, like the final. And I noticed that poster's still up there with like data on. I mean, I didn't know. Are we doing that still, or has my school just been doing that and that's like been a no-no or something? I don't know.
I'll hear your thoughts, Wendy.
Do you know what I'm talking about? Like when
Yeah,
we
it's-
first started the
yeah.
lab, we've been doing it for years, but
We-
nobody's mentioning that.
To me, I always thought that should go in like where your data room is.
I
you
know, I always thought it was odd it was up there too,
Yeah.
but I mean, Curtis, they
Yeah.
like to see, the kids like to see, oh my gosh, we failed it. And then they like did good. I mean, they liked it, but it was also kind of like uncomfortable, kind of.
Sure, and
I
I think that's
totally-
really a school-based decision, because like Jamie said,
Yeah.
I've seen quite a few in the data room.
Mhm.
But I think it is important, whether it's in the lab or in the data room, that we're tracking data and having those conversations. But that's a great question.
Okay, and I saw some other question about when they're officially supposed to start. I keep looking for like a document that says, do this lab between this period and that period, and do this lab. Is there actual like a date, like document that tells me what lab times certain labs should go out, or is it just randomly throughout that, like goes with that unit or that, life science or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, it's in the like I'm looking at fourth grade. Pollution solution should occur within the window, August 22nd to November 11th.
Is that like
Um,
on the like at a glance kind of thing? Are you
yeah,
looking?
yeah.
Oh,
This
okay.
this
All
guy
right.
right here.
Yeah. Okay, so just inside that.
hmm
Perfect.
And you might be asked. I don't know. Most of the APs do the lab schedule, but you might be asked to help with that. With the
Yeah, we
lab
kind
schedule.
of all just kind of grabbed it, and it seemed like at our school, nobody wants to be the first all the time and nobody wants to be the last and nobody wants, so it's kind of like, it's always been like, what do you want this time? Like,
I always suggest the lab manager be the first one to go.
yeah, that's what
because,
I'm
yeah,
doing right now. Yeah.
Yep. That's always our recommendation. Because the lab manager is the one they'll set up, and they can also, um, oh, this works better,
Right,
like
right.
management wise, it lets you guys kind of figure things out a little bit better.
And also
So, yeah.
with earth science, you only have one lab. Do not start your physical science lab number 2, until after cycle 1 assessment,
Yeah.
because with the pacing calendars, during earth science, we have given a 1-week buffer. If you look at the time period right above where the common assessment dates are for your grade level. So if you do a second lab during earth science, you will not have enough time to cover the core content. So then you'll just schedule your 2 physical science labs during physical science. But I know some schools have tried to like sort of get ahead and just gone through like lab 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you do that, you won't be able to cover the core content within the
Yeah.
testing window.
And it just depends on the size of the school. We have like smaller schools that can kind of spread things out a little bit more. They might have less units, but then we have larger schools that they kind of need to start, you know, um, like very soon. We used to say after Labor Day, but we started a little earlier this time. Um, so just kind of depending on your schools, how you calendar it out as far as starting. That's a good question. Deborah said went in yesterday. Oh, sorted by grade. Okay, sorted some different things. Okay, thank you. Tori, I'm new to the role as well. Are all the pre-post tests already with the lab materials? So those are on Performance Matters. So they're on our digital testing platform. So the teacher releases those pre-tests to their students. And you have the option of taking it. So I was out in school last week and they were just taking them on their device, the pre-tests. You might have school might want to print the hard copy out and do it on Scantron. So it's a school based. There are only 5 questions. So my recommendation is to kind of just do them on the devices. They're not as like secure tests as like our cycle assessments and things like that. And then the post test is literally the same test. So and they're titled that way. It might say 5th grade surviving the storm pre-test, and then post test. Yeah. If you haven't used Performance Matters, you definitely want to talk to your or AP or our tech coordinator, MTSS coach, any coach. These are fantastic questions, by the way. This is exactly what you wanted. Michelle, are you still online? You're at Ozona, right?
Yes, I'm in Arizona. Did
Okay.
you by any chance send the moon poster too? I had asked for the moon poster.
I did. So yeah. It shall be arriving.
Okay.
We've been at the warehouse like the last month, every Friday, and there's been some delays in things getting out. They're down drivers, so instead of using trucks, they were using vans, and we didn't even know about that.
Oh,
So
wow.
literally, instead of like a whole pallet going into a truck, they were literally using vans and just throwing the boxes in the vans. So that's why we're like, why has this school already got their stuff and this school doesn't? So it's been a little nutty start with our shipping processes. So hopefully we'll get that squared away. But yes, the moon poster shall be arriving. I even put a sticker on it.
Great. Thank you so much, guys.
You're welcome.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Thank you, Carrie. Yes, Deborah, those should have been sent out. So lab journals. So the first lab was sent with the core units. So you should have surviving the storm for fifth, pollution solution for fourth, third grade was minerals rock, second grade was keeping it cool, and first grade was rolling along. And they're pretty much like they were in the past. The format, more of like a journal bound um, piece. That way the teacher could leave them in the lab and not have to like tote them around. Especially sometimes the lab backs up to like PE or lunch or something like that, so a teacher could just leave them in the lab. So yeah.
Hi, I have a question about the fifth grade surviving the storm.
Sure. Hey,
It's
Lisa.
Lisa Monty.
Hi.
My kids loved this last year. They had a blast with it,
Yep.
and I think it was great. However, I had a little bit of issues with no parameters, so I was wondering.
Okay.
I didn't. It's still shrink wrapped. I didn't have a chance to open it yet. But are there parameters? Like, do they all get the same materials? Does it have to be a certain height? Does it have to be a certain width? Or are we totally letting them
Yes.
be creative?
Alicia revamped that a
Okay, good.
little bit more parameters, more time collecting data. She even sent out, I think it was a laminated color
Yes, I
picture
saw
of,
that.
yeah,
Of
so that
different
was
types
part
of
of it.
houses. Okay.
Absolutely.
Because last year it was just like grab materials and build something. And my kids had a
Correct.
blast and it
Oh,
was
yeah,
awesome. But I was like, did we really like learn anything about design or we just have a great time with
absolutely.
the blower and just and creating in lots of tape. So
One,
that's all.
yes, so that has been definitely tightened up. One thing we noticed last year, um, and it's great. Engineering and STEM is fantastic, but to kind of cut down the time building and do more time, what we really would need to do is collecting data, analyzing data, using tools. So
Right.
you'll see that there's even with the insulator, remember the thinking like a scientist one?
Yes.
So we're actually providing you the koozies. So instead of having to spend so much time building, there's
Okay,
going to
good.
be more time, actually
Testing and
doing
recording
the
data. That the
scientific
kids,
method. Yeah.
the kids loved it, like I said,
Yeah.
but I felt like, okay, what did I really teach them? That's all.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yeah, we totally noticed that. That's the cool thing about being out there and seeing like, okay, too much time building. We gotta
Yeah,
get to the
okay.
good stuff.
I mean,
Yeah,
it made them excited. They kids loved it,
absolutely.
so,
Oh yeah,
okay, thank you.
thank you. That was a
That
great
blower
question.
was great. They love that. So that's a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. Some folks were a little scared of it, but once they saw once they understood what to
Yeah,
do,
and
it
the
was
design was cool. I mean, when they truly like saw why somebody's made it, there
oh
wasn't
yeah.
enough. That's all. Okay, thanks. Appreciate
The
it.
best was watching the houses blow
Yeah,
away. That
yeah,
was the most
absolutely.
fun. Great question, Lisa. Thank you. Thank you, Deborah.
Hello.
Hi.
If nobody else has a question, which I think I waited for most people to be off.
It's okay.
Um, I am a new lab manager, and so I don't know if there's information that you used to say in the lab manager presentations in previous years
Mhm.
that I might be useful. I also have a very helpful team
Okay.
in my grade. Like my teammate has been a lab manager in the year in the past, and
Oh, good.
so are other coworkers.
That's the cool thing about this being the 10th year. Somebody's been a lab manager at one point.
Yeah,
What grade level are you?
fourth grade.
Fourth grade. Awesome. Um, yeah, I mean, pretty much everything I said, just kind of, making sure that everything's set up. So when you look through the curriculum guide for the lab, just making sure
Okay.
that you have those daily things set up. But
So
if you,
set it up, do the inventory, and
yeah,
make sure you keep track of everything and
mm-hmm.
keep it grade specific.
Yeah. Are you doing just fourth grade? You said
Just
fourth
fourth
grade
grade.
lab? Okay. Okay. So that would be good. Yeah. The first lab for fourth grade has lots of components. So it's got the Enviroscape, the big green suitcase. You'll see a big green suitcase.
Okay.
And it has the little city in it. Um, and they use that to kind of do some pollution, the effects of pollution on the environment and human impact, all that good stuff. And then the second part, they do data collection with different liquids. So like vinegar, water, baking soda, water, vitamin water, Gatorade, um, whatever you
Is
want
all
to
that
choose.
provided? The
The
baking
liquids are
soda,
not.
okay.
So that would be some consumable. So and you would just need one bottle
Oh
for
yeah.
each one.
Okay.
And there's test tubes. So there's little test tubes that go, and we sent extra test tubes actually last week. So those might be every school got some extra test tubes, and they're jumbo too for the liquids and pH paper. So there's pH paper to test those different liquids.
And Jamie,
So
you
that
may have said this already, but as the lab manager, also, you'll need to reset it each week
yeah,
for each of your teammates.
correct. So how many fourth grade science teachers do you have?
There are 4 of us.
So you're 4. So you're gonna go first.
Okay, I did hear that.
Make sure you go first because you'll figure out like I shouldn't have done this, and then Yeah, everybody, the last teacher that goes, so when you rotate, so you'll teacher A, B, C, D. So teacher D is always the best because you worked out all the kinks. So that's why I always say teacher D has the best time because all the kinks and things have been worked out
Okay.
for that particular teacher. So yeah, that one has a lot of components. And then, when you get into the other fourth grade labs, it's not as heavy on materials. But that first fourth grade one has quite a lot. And yeah, just email me what school are you at?
Curly Creek.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, I can totally. Wait, did Miss I think Brickley emailed me.
Yes.
Are you the teacher that?
Yes, that's me.
Okay. All right. Well, yes. We need to set up a time. I could come out and kind of walk you through a couple things if you want me to do that. So were you on that email? Did I respond?
Yes.
Okay.
I haven't checked my email today.
Okay. Okay. But yeah, yeah, if you want to set up a time in the next couple of weeks, I can totally come out and do that. Help you out there
Okay.
for sure. Make sure you have everything. Yep.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
You're
You
very
guys
welcome.
seem like amazing, like the whole team.
We're not
Oh,
bad.
thank you.
We're
No, really.
A lot of us have been around for a while, but that's so sweet of you to say that.
This is my 25th year, not as a coach, but I've been a coach for 13 of those 25. But yeah. Plus science hasn't changed since 2008, so our standards,
Yeah,
math and
I did find that a
Yeah.
fun fact, I guess.
math and ELA have been changing lots over the years, so we're still the
Okay,
same.
well,
We're still the
I'll
same.
look through my email and then see if we can
Sweet.
set up a date in the
Yeah.
future.
Sounds good. All right.
Okay, thank you so much for your time.
Very welcome.
Thanks.
Yeah, I remember Kathy. Yeah, seemed. She sent me. Yeah, I think you forwarded it to me.
Possibly. Her name
Yeah.
looked familiar.
Yes. And then she said the name of the school. I'm like, oh yeah. But I don't think she got back to me yet because I was like, yeah, just let me know
Thank
when
you,
you want me to
everybody.
meet with her.
Appreciate it.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Lisa. Great
Thank you.
questions. Thank you.
Take care.
Hey, I know we still have official office hours, but
Yeah.
um,
I'm gonna
question,
stop recording.
anything that you want to share or we need to share tomorrow during that last hour and a